Thank you for choosing to check out our video on Dungeons and Discourse. Our dedicated team used the knowledge we attained here at CSUB in networks, databases, web development, and many others to produce our companion D&D module. Our team sacrificed some efficiency to dabble in all the various aspects of our project. However, Andrew and I concentrated on the server side and database, while Jason and Melina concentrated on the front-end development. My colleagues are going to walk you through the various aspects of our messaging app, and then I will come back and give you a glimpse of how a blind person navigates our application. Without further ado, I present Andrew Manns, who is the creative genius behind our project.
Hello and welcome to our presentation on our final project called Dungeons and Discourse. My name is Andrew Manns and I will be introducing our project. You will be hearing from my constituents Jason Jelly, Melina Gutierrez, and Scott Kurtz during this presentation. To introduce our project, I would like to start with a quote. "It simply isn't an adventure worth telling if there aren't any dragons," attributed to J.R.R. Tolkien. While we never had any run-ins with actual dragons during the development of our project, we do feel that the nature of this project ties intrinsically to the concept of fantasy, and it would be remiss not to address that fact going in. Our presentation today is divided into 4 chapters: the idea, the development, lessons learned, and finally, future plans. We begin with the idea, your unreliable narrator. So what is D&D Message Time? Put simply, D&D Message Time is a chat application built specifically to be a companion to the tabletop role-playing game Dungeons & Dragons, but it can be used with other systems as well, such as Pathfinder, Cyberpunk Red, or Shadowrun as an example. This chat messenger is meant to be used in conjunction with other systems that can assist in creating an online RPG environment, such as Discord and Roll20. This application adds the ability for characters within the game to speak to each other in the canon, as if they naturally had the ability to access similar abilities within the game's canon. So why did we make this? Well, the idea for this project was initially created as a supplement to a Dungeons & Dragons campaign being created by the project lead. The specifics of this campaign are still in the works, but one of the major differences between a traditional D&D campaign is the fact that it is set in the present as opposed to a fantasy medieval setting. Characters in said campaign would have access and be able to communicate across the internet using a messenger application. This application that we've created is largely purpose-built to serve this purpose. The features of this messenger include the main chat messenger, allowing inter-person communication. It includes admin privileges to give the game master extra functionality compared to the players. It includes a built-in dice roller, allowing for a large number of common tabletop dice combinations, such as rolling a d20 for an attack roll. The application also supports the ability to run multiple games across the same server. As a part of the admin functionality, you can scramble text in order to obfuscate the meaning of a message, which can be very interesting in a role-playing environment. Finally, the application has a number of built-in emotes, accessible through the messenger through chat commands.
Chapter 2, the development. This is a timeline of some of the important moments of our project. In the first semester, we created a simple forum-style chat site to test communication between users over the internet. We also commissioned our emotes and built working prototypes of the dice roller and the message scrambler. After winter break, we transitioned our server over to the CSUB Computer Lab server, Bender, which, in hindsight, wasn't a great idea. Restrictions on file editing on the server massively slowed down progress. To make matters worse, an update to the server caused us to lose practically all of the progress we had made since winter break. Because of this, we decided to separate from Bender and start again, which was for the best, as in only a few short weeks, we were able to not only make up our lost progress, but make more progress than we had the entire time we were on Bender. Now on to some notes about development. This project shares its roots with the project for another class, that being the forum prototype mentioned on the timeline. The old project had another student as a lead, and while they guided that project in a way that was good for that class, we realized it wasn't the direction this project needed to go. While we had originally planned to modify the old code and add new functionality, it wasn't worth the hassle required to make the code do something it wasn't designed for, and it was another factor for why we restarted from scratch after the data loss. The old project is no longer used in any way, but it's still an important step in the overall development of the current project.
Now, let's talk about some of the lessons we learned along the way and the huge shift that came with implementing what we learned, as well as exactly what Operation Resetty Spaghetti was. Our original plan was to host the entire project on a departmental server, and we were fully configured in our project's original state. However, the delays that occurred to get there wasted precious time. We needed to make edits to configure the Nginx file for our server to perform correctly, and we needed basically admin permissions to do so. Once we had gotten set up, there was an issue outside of our control that caused our progress to be wiped and deleted. While we could recover the files, the admin level changes that would need to be done again would have too large of a turnaround time to continue in this direction. Due to the setback, we felt it would be in our best interest to restart with our growth and knowledge, and thus the phase given the codename Operation Resetty Spaghetti was born. This phase would be the most critical for the development of the project. We couldn't have the server hosted outside of our own hands anymore. We swapped to hosting the server using an Amazon Web Services node instance, which cut down turnaround time almost entirely. Permission issues were also solved as it was now owned within the group. With this change, we needed to change the way the database would also be hosted. We decided to swap to using Firebase's real-time database hosted by one of the group members. Since we used to be working on a previous framework that 3 of the 4 members worked on before this course, we decided to scrap it and start fresh with one that we'd no longer have to edit and refactor to fit our needs. Our largest change was implementing our new block system as a work structure. We distributed pieces of work into a series of blocks for the members, and the goal was to complete each block before moving to a new level. The levels for the features in these blocks were assigned as mandatory, critical features, and polish to organize the tasks by importance. Thanks to the block system, we were able to successfully rebuild from the ground up. Also, a large thanks to some guidance from tutorials and too much caffeine, we had an even more clear and successful framework to develop from over the course of an insane amount of hours spent in calls and developing over the course of 6 days. Below we have a couple of blocks we used for this phase of production. Now that we've seen some of the successes, let's see and hear some of this project in action.
To begin, after you log in, you are dropped upon this opening page. This opening page has a sidebar on the left-hand side, and a number of tabs on the top that include conversations, contacts, dice, and if you have admin functionality, a scrambler as well. We will talk specifically in my part about the contacts and the conversations. When a new user joins the room, their contact is automatically added into your contacts list. This is basically your logbook of people that you're able to message within this application. In order to do so, you come over to the conversations window, you go down to the bottom and say create new conversation, and it creates a prompt for you to add people to this conversation. You can add one or multiple. After you hit create, the newly created conversation will open in the window. You can then type your message to the other person, and it will receive it on their end. Every single time a new user joins the game, their username will automatically be added to everyone's contact list. In most cases, this functionality works without a hitch. However, if there is a case where one of your users is missing from your contacts list, you can either ask them to refresh their page and it will automatically send across the network, or if that does not work, you can manually add them using the new contact button down at the bottom left-hand side of the contacts list. At the bottom left-hand side of the page, you will see your ID, which is the username that you are broadcasting across the network, and the game ID, which is the game that you are sending your messages in. You can also see next to your ID a logout button, which will clear your local storage and send you back to the login menu.
The dice roller allows you to easily roll combinations of different sided dice. You can also apply a modifier to your roll and describe it to help keep track of what each roll was for. To roll the dice, all you have to do is press the roll dice button, choose how many of each dice you want to roll, optionally describe the roll or apply a modifier, and then click roll. Your roll will appear on the sidebar and it will give details on the roll and its outcome. At the top will be a description of the roll if you gave it one, followed by what dice were rolled. The first number is the number of that dice rolled, and the second number is how many sides that dice had. Under that, each dice is shown along with the outcome of the individual rolls of each dice. So in this case, a d6 was rolled 3 times, and the outcome of those rolls were 1, 1, and 3. Next is the modifier, and finally the total sum of the roll, including the modifier. Message scrambling can be done by pressing the button next to the send message button. Pressing this button allows you to choose the difficulty of the scramble along with how scrambled you want the message to be. Easy scrambles the sentence but keeps letters within their own word. Medium allows letters to be swapped with any other letter in the sentence, and instead of rearranging letters, hard replaces letters with a random one, making it almost impossible to decipher at higher percentages. As an example, I'll scramble this part of my script using the medium difficulty at 25%. I chose a relatively low percentage, so the message is still possible to decode without it being too difficult. Now, you don't have to worry about your emotes being lost in the scrambling. The system detects emotes and removes them before the message is scrambled. This way, the person you're talking to may not understand what you said, but they can still tell that you were excited to say it.
Let's look into Dungeons and Discourse's emotes a bit more. As Jason mentioned while using a chat messenger, it can be difficult to get the full point across, and even more so if a message is scrambled. So we've implemented some special text-based emotes specifically for Dungeons and Discourse. Our emotes can help as context clues for important messages, or it's a simple way to communicate through images quickly. Since we've decided to base our project as a complement to Dungeons & Dragons, we wanted to pay respect to the original aesthetics. We reached out to an independent artist and commissioned them for a beginning set of 7 custom emotes total, all using the red color scheme that you'll see throughout the messenger. Each of the emotes are based on a different race in Dungeons & Dragons, and if this were a larger scale project with a legitimate budget, we would love to incorporate at least one emote featuring each of the races. The emotes can be used in a markdown style by surrounding the keyword in colons. The emotes will appear as a standalone image, as seen here with the Pog emote, and bring more personality to the chat. Emotes can be shown using multiple names in case the player forgets one name for it. With this in mind, there could be an Easter egg emote or two that the player could discover just by guessing and checking.
Now that Andrew, Melina, and Jason have brought you through our production process and demonstrated to you what our website looks like and how our application works, I am going to demonstrate to you how our unreliable narrator application is compatible with speech reading software and is therefore accessible for the blind population. So I have preloaded our website.
Unreliable narrator
And so you can see that we have the unreliable narrator website up, and there are 4 options.
Conversations tab selected. Contacts tab. Price tab. Scrambler tab.
Now I'm going to show you what a conversation looks like.
Unreliable conversations tab selected.
So we're in the conversations tab. I'm just going to down arrow here.
Angie, comma, step button, step button. John, comma, step button.
So these are different buttons that I can click on for conversations.
John button. Unlabeled forward button blank. Your ID colon blank. Game ID colon 1. New conversation button.
So I'm going to push a new conversation.
Enter. Unreliable narrator V3M. Game ID colon 1. New conversation button. Enter. Create conversation. Close. Angie Scott step John. Create conversation. Close button.
So you can see we're going to create a conversation, and I'm going to put check marks on the people I want in the conversation.
Blank. Angie checkbox not checked.
I'm going to check her.
Space. Angie checkbox checked. Stop checkbox. Step checkbox not checked.
I'll check Steph.
Space. Step checkbox checked. Clear checkmark. Press space bar period. John checkbox. Create button.
So I'll create it.
Enter. New conversation button to activate.
So now I'm going to press
New conversation
the
button
E
to
button,
activate. Edit required invalid enter space.
and
Edit
that
required
brings
invalid
me to
enter.
the edit box. And so now I'm going to type in let's attack. Okay. And then I'm going to just press tab.
Send button to activate. Press enter period.
Puts me to the send button, and I'm going to send it.
Enter.
And so now
Send button. Required invalid enter edit.
it's been sent.
You. Let's attack.
And let's attack. I went up arrowed, and that's where I heard the message that I sent. And so now I can send a new message if I just down arrow
You. Required invalid enter edit.
right there. So the space bar,
Space. Edit
type in
required
the
invalid enter.
message.
Type of text.
This is basically how the conversations tab works. I am sorry if that was a little hard on your ears. My wife requires that I wear my headphones whenever I use the computer around her. So we thought about going through all of the different options with you, but in the interest of time, we will move on to our next slide and discuss our future plans with you. Although we feel that we have developed a strong core application, there is room for improvement. The areas we could work on include developing multiple formats, adding to admin's abilities, broadening our database system, and strengthening our security. In order to reach a broader audience, we need to develop code so our format can fit on mobile phones and tablets. In our application's current form, it would overwhelm our users with information in the tablets and phones. In regards to our administrator, we would like to give the DM the ability to observe all of the conversations occurring among the players. Our database is currently sufficient to meet the needs of our program, but it would be fun to add more information to the system, especially in the area of non-player characters with stats and items. Additionally, we need to implement more security into our app. Unreliable Narrator is an application that is for fun, and there really shouldn't be any extremely sensitive information being shared across our platform. So security was placed a little lower on our list of priorities. However, we don't need annoying hackers working their way into our games. So we need to implement some hashing code and validation code. Thank you for choosing to check out our presentation for Dungeons and Discourse Unreliable Narrator application. Please feel free to reach out to us if you have any additional questions. Thank you.